Fiat is a bit of an odd brand to try and define. The company that brought us the quite brilliant Bravo also gave us the rather odd Multipla. They did a fantastic job of resurrecting the 500, but then also brought out a 4x4 Super Mini. So when it comes to driving a Fiat, you're never quite sure what to expect. The last two Fiats I drove, the 500C and the Scudo People Carrier, were both pleasantly surprising, even though they're on opposite ends of the driving spectrum. But this is the humble Panda, a super mini city runabout designed to pack as much as possible into a rather tight budget. And it doesn't quite succeed. At this end of the market, you can never expect any real luxury, but even so, the Panda has some oddities. It's got central locking, but it's not remote. It's got front electric windows, but the only way to open the boot is with the key. There isn't even a latch on the inside. It's got all the toys, but some of the materials could be better. The layout is certainly different and takes a bit of getting used to, and while the seat material offers a bit of colour, the rest of the interior does a great impersonation of a British summer's day. Grey and pretty dull. It is fairly comfortable, although the driving position is a bit on the high side and the seats could offer a little more support. The spec level is decent with MP3 CD player, aircon, electric mirrors, full trip computer, plus all the other stuff I mentioned. As you'd expect in a car that's only 3.5 meters long, room at the back isn't exactly generous, but the boot space is decent enough. So while the Panda is unlike anything else on the inside, the styling is also quite unique. The Fiat website says that its design defies definition and that it's way ahead of its time. Well, I can give you a definition: boxy. And it would be ahead of its time if every other car on the road had been designed in 1980. The Panda has been around for some time now, long enough for 1.5 million of the things to be churned out. Who said the Panda was an endangered species? The car never was a bad-looking thing, it's just not very Italian. Even with its upgraded mirrors, wheel covers, grille and headlights, at best it manages a certain cute charm to it. At worst, this could be the most unexciting looking car to ever come out of Italy. And to match the styling, it has an engine with equally nondescript figures. It's a 4-cylinder 1200 with 44 kilowatts and 102 Newton meters. 0 to 100 time, 14 seconds. Being the city runabout that it is, the important thing here is how thirsty it is, and it's not. Fiat claim a figure of 5.6 litres per 100 Ks, and while our test figure was more around the 6.2 mark, it's still pretty impressive. And despite its mechanical modesty, this engine doesn't feel too bad. In fact, it would be great if it weren't for the gearbox. It's called the MTA, which stands for Manual Transmission Automated. Now, it's the same kind of technology that you get in the gearbox of the M6 and the old DB9. And while those cars and this one are light years apart, they have something in common. Their gearboxes are all terrible. Basically, the driver doesn't operate a clutch. Instead, it's actuated by shifting the lever. Then there's some robotized nonsense that changes the gears for you. You can run in full automatic mode as well, and it's supposed to give you the convenience of an automatic and the involvement of a manual. But all it ends up doing is irritating the hell out of you, especially if you want to get anywhere in a hurry. Let me put it to you this way. I've done a bit of research and I figured out that a 15-minute sort of suburban drive needs about 60 gear changes. So let's assume you have that kind of drive to work. That means you're going through 120 gear changes a day. That's 600 a week. That's 2,400 a month. 28,800 gear changes every year. Now, if you work out that a bit further, it means that at a second a gear change, you're spending 28,800 seconds every year. That's 8 hours. That's a full working day just waiting for this car to change gear. And incredibly, it's possible to make this car feel even worse. You simply push this button. It stands for economy, and in automatic mode, it basically short shifts, which means not only do you have more frequent and irritating and time-consuming gear shifts, but the poor 1200 motor doesn't have any time to get up any sort of power, so you end up going in slow motion. The robotized manual gearbox is something that is just not a good idea, whether you're in a city car or a supercar. And to add insult to ineptitude, they want 15,000 Rand extra for that gearbox, bringing the grand total to 141,000 Rand. There's no doubt that the Panda has its strengths, one of which is that it is an honest little city car. But if you have to have a Panda, save yourself money and irritation, and don't bother with the MTA. The Panda dishes out decent power from its modest 1200 motor, and although it doesn't provide any real thrills, it's good enough to get you around town. The interior could do with a bit of personality, but the big problem comes when you have to change gear. The automated manual gearbox is slow, unrefined, and rather irritating.